Welcome back, everyone, to another incredible episode of Chat with Dan. Now, before we start, I just want to thank you so much for taking the time to checking this out. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, follow, it helps a lot, and again, thank you. Have an incredible day or evening, depending where you are, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay safe. Welcome, everyone, to another incredible episode of Chat with Dan. For today, we have on the show the incredible, the amazing, the badass, the superstar Nikki. Nikki, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you, Dan?
Doing fantastic. I mean, what better way to have an incredible evening than to be chatting with someone as badass as you? You know what I mean?
I can say the same. You're flattering me over here.
Absolutely. Always. Now, for those who don't know, who is the incredible, amazing, badass superstar Nikki, please tell us who you are.
All right. Well, my name is Nikki Nash. I am a actress and musician based up in Canada. Yeah, I've been out here for about 5 years pursuing my dream in the film industry and music industry, and it's been a bit of an adventure.
There you go. I love it. I love it. So you basically are doing everything here and there. I mean, step by step, basically.
Step by step. Moving out here, I was definitely the first in my family to kind of go into this industry a little bit more seriously.
Oh, okay.
So it has been like legitimate fresh start for for all of us here.
I love it. I love it. Now, before we start with this interview, I also want to thank those who are watching this. Thank you so much. If this is your first episode, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, follow. It helps a lot. If this is your fifth one, sixth one, keep watching them, share them with your friends and family. And without further, let's get started. So let's go back in time here and tell me where this passion started.
I'd have to say I think this passion has always been around. I have vague memories of dragging my parents downstairs into the basement with like some of our other friends that were there, and we put on like these impromptu little improv shows. And we had props, we
Yeah.
had stage directions, like we would sit down and plan how this would go, and we were like 6 at the time. So I think it's always been there, and I've always loved to perform. As I got a little bit older, I got a little bit more shy,
Yeah.
but I was able to kind of rediscover it, and yeah, that's one of my favorite memories. I think that's where it started.
That's awesome. And back when you started making back when you started making those first steps, tell me what were some of the challenges that you encounter?
Some of the challenges I think was definitely my stage fright.
Okay.
I ended up getting back into performing for people through singing, actually. So I took singing lessons because I wanted to get over public speaking. And so I thought if I could sing in front of people, I could talk in front of people. And I was
True.
horribly wrong.
Yeah.
But I
Okay.
can sing in front of people. Just
There you
don't
go.
ask me to say a large speech in front of
Mm,
a whole room full of people. I will Toastmasters, however you do it, please tell me your secret because I cannot.
absolutely.
But so I'd have to say that was probably my biggest thing is getting up on stage and kind of showing what I can do in front of other people, because I was always just worried how I was going to be perceived, and that haunted me for a really long time. Everything I did, I was always too afraid to try and like hit that like really high note or hit that really long note and personalize it to something that sounded more like me, or do a different
Yeah.
run, or try a different take on a character, because I was always worried that somebody would look at it and go,
Mm,
okay.
yeah, of course.
Right? So that was probably my biggest challenge when I first started.
Yeah, I mean it does make sense because you're putting yourself in a very vulnerable position. You know what I mean? Like either when you're performing in front of people, I mean you do put yourself in a very vulnerable position, and it's a little bit scary when you see those people watching you and be like, what are you gonna do? You know what I mean? So
I do. And I think the biggest part of it too is what a lot of people don't realize when it comes to performing is when you're playing a character, when you're singing a song, you're putting out a piece of yourself in it, right?
yeah.
So if that character or that, song or whatever you wrote gets rejected, sometimes it can feel like a part of you got rejected, right?
Mm,
So it's a really hard feeling to kind of get past. And I think that's what a lot of people don't know about performing, is it is very vulnerable.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And do you remember the first time you performed like that? Like the very first time you performed?
The very first time I performed professionally, I think I was 14, I want to
Okay.
say. I sang a good old Taylor Swift song. I believe it was You Belong With Me. And I was so nervous. I cracked so loudly
Mm,
on one of the higher notes.
Yeah.
And I remember walking off that stage being like, "That's it. I'm done. I'm never doing this again." And if it wasn't for like my vocal coach at Cooper Studios back in Alberta, I probably would have stopped. If they didn't encourage me and say this happens to literally everybody, you now have a new baseline. It can't get any
Mhm.
worse than this. Keep going. I probably would have stopped.
Now, let's say that someone is about to perform for the very first time. I mean, someone who is watching this or listen to it, it's about to perform for that very first time. So, what advice would you give to that person? Or at the same time, what advice would you give? Or yeah, like if you could go back in time, what are some of the things that you wish you knew before doing that first performance?
Just do it.
There you go.
Sing like you're in the shower. Sing like there's nobody there. You're gonna look back. No one ever looks back at a performance and goes, "Wow, I was mediocre.
Mm,
Good job. I did good," right? But if
yeah,
you look back at that performance and went, "You know what? I went for that crazy high note, and sure, I missed it, but now I have an idea of where I want to go, and that's where I'm going to go." So look at each performance as kind of a nice little benchmark for you. How comfortable are you on stage? How comfortable are you with your talent? Like, do you check in with yourself at those points? Like, where do you feel you stand? Like, if you were singing in front of a million people, or if you were singing in front of one person, like it should feel the same,
yeah.
right? So I think that's what I would say. I would say just go out and do it and make mistakes and then embrace those mistakes, learn from them, and keep going, get better.
There you go. Preach. I love it. Now, moving on a little bit here. Let's focus on a little bit on your acting career and tell me how you prepare a character. Now, I understand, of course, that depends on the role. But what is usually your initial approach before diving into this whole process?
My initial approach is reading the scene and kind of just reading the scene in its entirety and understanding the context. I think what a lot of people make the mistakes of is they just kind of go right into dialogue with
Okay.
character, which is, yeah, you need to recognize your dialogue, but you also need to recognize why your dialogue is there. So the first thing that I do is I take apart scenes, and my acting coach, he talks about the 3 act structure. So figuring out where that is and where the scene is progressing and why a character is progressing in that way, like what is their point or counterpoint, as he would say it. So after I'm done kind of assessing like what situation we're in, I look at the dialogue and I try and match it with an emotion in my own life that might make me react the same way. Like, for example, if the first scene I ever got in that class was a scene about being broken up with and cheated on, right? So, and
Okay.
the character at first was very, like, she knew what was going on and she was very silent about it, right? She just kind of went with the conversation because she didn't want the conflict. So to try to, drum that up in myself, I tried to think of a situation or look back on a memory where I felt like I knew something was wrong, but I just couldn't say it, even though it was bubbling inside of me, right? So
Mm,
then the emotions, you connect it with the words, and then it just comes out very natural. And I try to do that with every character that I have ever encountered, no matter how big, no matter how small, or how evil or how good.
yeah. I mean, it's magic, basically. I find it very cool when you get the chance to play somebody else. And also the fact that you can also get the chance to play. I don't know, lawyer to cop to taxi driver to president, alien, superhero. I mean, you name it. And I find that awesome because at the same time, I would assume, right, that it's a little bit of a therapeutic at the same time to put yourself away for a bit and be somebody else for a while.
It's very therapeutic. And also too, when you're letting out all those emotions, sometimes for a lot of people, those are emotions that they've never had the chance to let out,
Yeah, of course.
right? Like if you're dealing with a traumatic event that happened and your scene is kind of parallel to that, that's your outlet, right? So it's not also just playing another person, it's like letting another part of you kind of run out, and it's so refreshing and it's
Yeah,
so like uplifting because you just feel like this giant weight has been taken off of you.
absolutely. And when you're in this process of creating character, has it ever happened to you that you got stuck? That
Oh, absolutely.
and how you managed to continue moving forward and to just pass that bumper, let's say.
So one of the things that I get stuck on quite a bit as an actor, and I think a lot of other actors also get stuck there, is letting the hard emotions go through.
Okay.
Because in society, we're always kind of told, don't cry, don't look upset,
Mm,
don't don't let those emotions out that make you look, I guess, quote unquote, crazy. But when you're doing a character that is having a breakdown, you need to let those emotions out and you need to find that inside of you. So I think the biggest thing I get told by a lot of acting coaches is the biggest difference between an actor that's just starting out and that actor that's booking everything on Netflix is how far they're willing to go. If
Okay.
they're willing to go there. And that was the hardest part, was finding the way to break down that wall to be able to have those breakdowns in front of a camera with other people watching me.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume it would be kind of a little bit of a challenge. Play this very dramatic scene in front of people who's recording you,
And you have to do it like
right?
many of
Yeah.
many of times, right? Like that one scene, that 1 2 minute scene, people spend hours and hours recording that, right? So you have to hit that same mark and go to that same place exactly the same way every time. So that's it too, right? Like allowing yourself and also knowing how to heal it back and go there again
Yeah,
afterwards.
absolutely. I mean, and as you mentioned, the fact that that is not only one take, which some people might think that that they're recording a film and they do everything in one take, which is not. I mean, sometimes, as you mentioned, you could take several here and there, and you need to play the exact same feeling one time, another one, another one. Yeah, it sounds crazy. Yeah, or
It's a
more like
lot.
like a exhausting.
It can definitely be. I know in my acting class, like
Yeah.
my teacher there, he's the one that's ever pushed me the farthest. Like he always gives me scenes because, like I said, that was a hurdle of mine to just break down. And I would get there, and the next day I would just need to nap for like hours just to get that energy back.
Yeah, I bet. And how you stay on character when you play this very dramatic or emotional scene, how you manage to stay like prepare it before you go. You know what I mean? Like, is
Mhm.
there like any sort of thing that you do for you like put your mind to it and be like, okay, I'm about to do this, or how does that work for you?
Hours and hours and hours of preparation before that moment even happens.
Okay.
So a lot of the times when you need to hit your character, it's you should you should know it enough that by the time you do it, you can forget it and just let the scene come through you. Um, Another thing that I was told quite a bit is if you're thinking a lot about your scene, like it comes through, right? Your scene
Hmm.
should just be natural. You're playing a person, right? Like this person isn't scripted to that character.
Totally.
So every emotion, every line, every mannerism should be so well ingrained in your emotional memory
Hmm.
that by the time you hit that point, there's not really much work you have to do. You just have to kind of get to that, whatever emotional prep you made, get to that place and just let it happen.
That's incredible. And tell me, like, what is your goal? I mean, like when you're about to perform, either for acting or music, like what is the goal you want to achieve for the audience to feel?
Honestly, just to feel something.
There you go.
I got into this just because I love doing creative things, and I love being able to be a part of like leaving an impression
Yep.
on somebody, right? So like you hear that song and that song hits you, or you see that one scene and it carries with you because you think like, oh my god, I went through that same thing, and it's a connection that you have with this
Mm,
person that is either on a screen or you know you're in the back bleachers and they're all the way up on the stage. Like that feeling of connection and emotion is one of the best feelings that you could ever have, and I would love to be a part of creating that experience for
there you go.
viewers for entertainment.
All right, I love it. And let's say that one day I call you and I tell you that I want to start acting. Now, I don't know anything about it. I mean, I have never. So, based on what you know, what do you think would be important for me to know before jumping in?
Everyone is going to tell you don't do it.
Okay. Yeah.
But do it. That's honestly the best advice I could give anyone. Like, get involved with
Mm,
like theater groups, get involved in the indie film community, get involved in going to networking events, script readings, just anywhere you can go where you're surrounding yourself with people that are also just starting out, or maybe just started out a year ago and maybe are, a year ahead of you. Like, surround yourself with people that have the same motivation as you. Because I have seen it so many times where people are really into this acting thing, but they don't have a great support group.
yeah.
And
Yeah, that's
they
true.
give up because all they hear is, family and friends saying, like, being an actor is really hard.
Yeah.
You're not going to make it on Netflix. You're not going to be in Hollywood. Like, why are you doing this? And you can't be in it to do that. You got to be in it because you just want to do it. So whether you make it Hollywood or whether you do one indie film ever, you just want to do it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And like, what do you think it's one of the reasons why, whenever you want to say that you want to start acting, musician, athlete, you get that voice from from your inner circle telling you why would you do that? It's gonna be a waste of time. You should find a job, find something stable, like all of those things. Like, what do you think is one of the reasons why they will be telling you that?
I think because it's a bit of half and half. Like there is
Okay.
some truth to that. There is,
Yeah.
it's very, very hard to make it in this industry. I have definitely learned that over the past 5 years that I have been here. There's definitely like the who people that have started this when they were two, right? And they already have X amount of years on you. They've made those contacts and they've gone through. But I think the other side of it too is I think some people, and I am sorry if I offend anyone listening to this
Yeah.
that has said these words, but I think that they're personally just too afraid to fail,
Hmm.
right? I think a lot of people take the safer route because if they go to school and they get an education and then they get a job and they start working towards a retirement, they raise a family, like they've hit the milestones that they've been conditioned to and it's safe.
Yeah.
But when you go into acting and there is all these barriers that get thrown at you, like you look like everybody else.
Yeah.
Everyone else is doing this too. There's only one role and 100 actors, 1,000 actors. Like it's it's very risky, right? And you
Yeah.
can set your life back by 10 years if you end up not making it, but it's the feeling of when you're there, right? Like if you're all right with doing what you love and looking back and not regretting it, even if you didn't make it, I think that's way better than playing it safe. And I think
Yeah,
that's why a lot of
absolutely.
people, say don't do it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I can understand, for example, with parents. I mean, they're from like a total different generation. Like for them, it was a total different game. So I can, of course, that when you're a teenager, you just don't get it. But when you start to grow up, you're like, oh, okay. Now I start to understand why they're, why they like where they're coming from. Like where they're telling me that. Of course, that it depends, right? Because when they tell you you're gonna suck or things like that, then you're like, okay, then this is not very constructive. So so I can understand also when they're telling you like you should find something stable, things like that. But yet again, I mean, for example, on my experience, what I have learned over the years is nothing is stable. I mean, you can find a regular 9 to 5, but one day they just not gonna like you anymore and they're gonna fire you and they're gonna put you in the street and what are you gonna do about it now? You know what I mean? So
Exactly.
yeah,
That's
it's
actually the experience I had moving out here was I originally wanted to be a teacher.
okay.
So if I decided not to do this, I would have been back in Alberta
Okay.
teaching a high
Yeah.
school somewhere. But I was looking at the contracts to become a teacher. And in order, just because of the amount of teachers that were there, it would have taken me 7 years to land like a full time contract at a school.
Yeah.
And I've also heard that here in Vancouver, it takes 7 years to kind of make your mark here. So that was kind of the choice that I had to make. Did I want to spend 7 years playing it safe? Or did I want to spend 7 years doing what I wanted to do? Both had the same odds. One just seemed safer because I had, that
Yeah.
degree.
Yeah.
But, it was the
It's your
same odds.
thing. Yeah, I just think. I mean, at the end, also what I ended up saying is that if what you're doing is not gonna work, then why not take that risk on something you actually like? Because I mean, if you work in something stable, as we mentioned, I mean, someday you're not gonna be young and hot anymore. They're gonna put the hot stuff away and they're gonna put someone newer. And then what? You know what I mean? Like I see that examples even with family members sometimes that they're under 60s, 70s, and they tend to be like I wish I could have done this, or if I had your age, I would have done this and that. So like those type of comments, in which most of the time you'd be like, yeah, sure. But when you actually listen to them, you're like, okay, so they actually have a little bit of regrets to it. So should I follow the same path? In which at some point I will be exactly the same. I've been doing the exact same thing, or I just break the circle and I just move like my own, like my own path, and we'll see what happens. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. No, there's a lot of truth to that. And I think that's just generations of people being told like A, B, C is what you do. If you divvy off from A, B, and C, you're not
Yeah,
gonna have a great D, right?
yeah,
But then they see the one or two people that go, I'm gonna go straight to F, right?
yeah,
And it works for them to some extent. And then it does make people think, but like, what if I just did it? What if I went into it?
yeah. I mean, it's fun. Whenever you go the other way around, or when people say go this way, you'll be like, why just don't go that way instead? And yeah, sometimes it tends to be messy, and you're gonna be making a lot of there's gonna be a lot of moments during that path in which you'd be like, why just didn't go the other way? You know what I mean? But
Mhm.
yet again, it's experience. And also, you know what? A friend of mine, so we were in a party. This friend of mine was super drunk, and then we started talking about this, like following your dreams and everything. And then he wanted to be an actor, and then he was like, "Well, if you think about it, nothing in this life makes sense." And I was like, "What do you mean?" He was like, "So hear me out." I was like, "Okay." So what sense? I mean, so we basically live inside a ball that it's outside of a thing called space, that it's dark, we don't know anything about it. Tell me, does that make sense? I was like, no, that doesn't make any sense. Exactly. So nothing in this life makes sense, so why just don't take a risk and do something you want to do about it? So I was like, huh, interesting.
You have a wise friend there.
Yeah, I mean, too bad that he only gets wiser when he gets drunk. So anyway, uh that's for another story. But anyway, moving on a little bit here. Let's focus a little bit on your music career. Tell me, like, let's say the same thing here, that I want to start into the whole music industry, you know, but I just don't know anything about it. So what do you think would be important for me to know before throwing everything away and be like, I'm just gonna I mean, the sky is the limit right now. So
Well, I guess that kind of depends, right? Like, it's what kind of musician do you want to be? Do you want to be in a band? Do you want to be a vocalist? Do you want to be a guitarist? Do you want to be a drummist? Like, what I would start there. Like, what is your brand? What is your niche? Like,
okay.
what do you want to do, right? And I would say play as often and everywhere that you can. Like,
Mm,
if you pick up an instrument or work on your vocal talent, even just for 10 minutes to an hour a day, like, keep at it. Just set some time. Sorry, set some time aside
yeah.
to really work on that, right? And then, yeah, just go to karaoke nights. Try and get involved in the same thing like music groups and get that support system. I have to say, for both professions, have a strong support system, because
Mm,
both industries are really hard. And if you don't have that, it's going to be so much easier just to give up.
yeah, absolutely.
So have
Absolutely.
that, have a direction. Where do you want to go? Where do you want to play? What kind of music do you want to do? And follow that. Every choice you make should be bringing you one step closer to that end goal.
There you go. And what are some of the artists that basically kind of inspire you to start to do your own music?
I'd have to say I always really loved country music. I'm also from Alberta. So, originally, actually, when I first started singing, I didn't. But the more I started playing country, I realized why everyone loved it, and
Yeah.
I had to stop lying to myself. And maybe I did like this genre.
Yeah.
But I really love Miranda Lambert. She was somebody that I definitely emulated quite a bit.
Okay.
I did also really like Miley Cyrus. I grew up watching her show and like listening to her sing and her vocal techniques, and I feel
Yeah.
like mine has definitely kind of followed her suit. And I had a lot of musical role models in my life. Like, I've had my uncles and aunts and cousins. They're very involved with just jamming in a basement, and I was always exposed to that, and that
That's
was
so
just a
cool.
really good vibe for me.
Yeah, of
So
course.
if I had
That's
to if I
awesome.
had to lump all of my inspiration into one little bowl there, I'd have to say it's a mix of all those things.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love that. That's cool. And like what are some of the music genres you usually like to listen when you're having a bad day?
I could listen to when I'm having a bad day. Actually, Michael Bublé, "Nobody But Me." That is my happy song. Completely left field, but that is my happy song.
Cool. Okay.
But yeah, but when if I like want to sing something when I'm upset, my go-to is probably some like sad country song, maybe some Morgan Walker, I don't know. But
Yeah. Yeah, okay.
yeah,
Like something I find pretty funny sometimes about country is their music videos. They tend sometimes to be kind of a little bit dramatic, and I'm like, come on. I mean, they're fun, of course, but like commercials as well, that the reactions are like off the charts. You'll be like, no one will react to that ever. You know what I mean? So I find that pretty funny. So
it is pretty funny. And like, yeah, there are some music videos I've seen from like country artists that just are either, yeah, they're very story orientated, or you remember them just from the variables or like the things out of left field that kind of get thrown at you.
yeah, I love it. Love it. Now let's say that for your birthday you get a time machine. But here's the catch. you can only use it once and to try to meet the 13-year-old version of yourself. So what advice would you say to that little you?
Go be weird. Go be weird and enjoy it. Everything that, you're freaking out about now, first of all of this stuff that wasn't cool when you were 13 is cool now. Wait for that day.
Yeah, I love
But
it.
also, don't be so afraid to be who you want to be, right? Who cares if not everybody likes you, or who cares if nobody likes you? Go do your thing. Go be you. It's so much better living freely than feeling you have to be in a box to please other people.
Yeah.
Go on stages. Tell your parents that you want to go do singing and acting, and go do it.
Yeah. There you go. And yeah, it's true. Back when you're a teenager, you want to kind of please everyone, you know?
Mm.
And it's also interesting because you know what you like and you know what you want, but if it is not cool due to the social standards in the school that you are, you're gonna hide it. And I mean, of course, that later on you're like, why did I mean, that's so stupid, you know? So
Oh yeah, following up with all the trends that everybody had was just, it was
mm,
too much. If I could have went to school in my PJs and my hair up, I would have been super happy. But everyone else was like, no, makeup, hair done. We have to have like all these expensive designer things, and
yeah,
we all have to, be into these things. And it's just, no. And go be weird. Go do your own thing. Go make you happy. You're
yeah,
enough on your own.
yeah. Now, let's say that, one day Netflix, HBO Max, Disney Plus, you name it, they call you and they tell you that they have this idea which goes that all of the characters you have played at the moment, they're all gonna gather to celebrate your birthday. But the film needs a name, so how would you call it?
Sorry, what was the last part? I didn't hear that.
Yeah, the film needs a name. So how would you call that film? What would be the
Oh
name of
God.
that film?
All of the characters I've played. Let me just think of all of the different characters and what their personas were like. Um, yeah, I something with awkward in the title.
Okay.
All of my characters except for one. I got to play Regina George, a Regina George like character one time, but all of the
Yeah.
other ones are pretty like quirky and awkward, very girl next doory. So yeah, maybe the awkward girl next door.
The
Awkward's
awkward girl.
anonymous. I don't know.
Okay. Okay. That sounds like a net. Okay.
Awkward's
That
anonymous. I'm sticking with that one because then it's
okay.
like Alcoholics Anonymous, but Awkward's Anonymous.
And would it be a sequel to it or just one?
It can even be a series. Every single week, we just come and we talk about,
There you go.
the weird way that we embarrassed ourselves that week, and we're all there for each other.
Okay. Okay. I love it. What about describing your whole career but on a drink? How would you
Hmm.
call this drink and what would it have?
I think the drink would have to have, when you have like that really good, like specifically made from the bartender to you type drink that
Mm,
just has 90 different flavors in one.
yeah.
I would have to say that would be the best way to describe it. Like there are some bitter moments, there are some really sweet moments,
Mm,
there are some really cold moments.
mm.
There are some moments where you do feel, confident and warm, and here you go. So, maybe a prairie fire mixed in a pineapple and rum type cocktail. You
I
get
like it.
all the little bits in there with some salt in the rim and some sugar in the glass. I don't know how good that would taste, but you get all of it.
Yeah, yeah. And I it would be cool also if you can see like when they give it to you, you can see the layers,
Hmm.
and then later on you mix it up and then everything mix and everything's mixed. But at the very beginning, you see like the whole different layers. That would be cool.
Yeah, kind of like a rainbow drink almost.
Yeah, 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 yeah. But how would you call it? Let's say I go to a bar and I want to have that drink. How do I call it?
Mm, they call it the milestones, or the milestone,
I mean, it
because each
definitely
layer is
sounds
a
like a
little
milestone.
milestone.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. I'll tell you what. At some point, I'm gonna make one of those. Let's see what
Ooh,
happens.
send me a picture and let me know how it is.
Yeah, I'll make sure that I will do it. That's awesome. Now, what motivates you? We all have those days that we just want to quit. That we just suddenly we have this feeling that we haven't that we are yeah that we have wasted our time here, that we're not good enough. We start to compare ourselves. I mean, I can go all night here, but what usually silent those thoughts and pushes you back on this journey, on this road that you have built for so many years now?
It's actually really funny. I was having that feeling like literally a week ago. I was sitting on my bed and I was like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. Like it's exhausting. I feel like I'm not going anywhere. It's just it was really debilitating. And what did bring me out of it was I was actually talking to my agent and he said, you need a new demo reel. And so that forced me to go back and look at all of the projects I've done in this
Yeah.
past year and seeing how much I did and all of the dedicated people that, worked on these projects and
Mm.
created these projects and wrote these projects and casted me in these projects. It was a nice reminder of it might feel like I'm not where I want to be right now, but I am not where I was when I first started.
Yeah.
And if I've made this much progress in a year and a half since, the world opened up again, how much more progress will I have if I just keep going?
Mm.
So I think you got to look back. You got to see what you've done, not what you have to do.
Totally. And now that you mentioned the whole how you manage to maintain yourself in a healthy mind during the whole pandemic, pandemic lockdown, how you manage that?
Uh on some levels I didn't. But on most levels I really just tried to keep busy.
Yeah.
So I took that year. I do have a degree in psychology. So during that
Okay.
time, I kind of worked more on that in that field.
Mm-hmm.
But because there was no film going on, because, Netflix studios shut down and, there was a lot of rules out here forbidding films to be made.
Yeah.
I took a lot of acting classes and I did a lot of Zoom, kind of meetings with other actors and networking events that way. So I always managed to kind of stay in that same support group
Mm.
where a couple friends, we would all, like I said, we'd all get on Zoom and we would either jam or, run some scenes. A lot of the acting community did go online. So a lot of classes were offered online. So you could still meet up with scene partners and still practice and keep your craft and
Mm-hmm.
keep going. It's just unfortunately you couldn't film anything, but a lot of people really dedicated their time, including myself, to getting
Mm-hmm.
better. And I think that's how I got through it and was ready when the world opened up again.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. And my last question, what can we expect from Nikki in the future? Hit it.
Ooh, well, I do have a couple songs coming out, so that's something that you can expect. Hopefully, probably by the beginning of next year.
Cool.
And yeah, a couple more projects this year. The web series is starting up again that I'm in, so that'll get started and that'll come out. And I think 2023, 2023 is gonna be a really good year.
I mean, what can I say? I love it. I love it. I'm super. I mean, it's incredible what you do. I love your career. I love the whole vibe you put to it, and I'm super sure that our next conversation is gonna be about who knows the 1,000 songs you have already created or the thousands project you've been in. Because the fact that you're doing it because you like it, and it sounds super cliche, right? Whenever they say do what makes you happy, do what you like, but we all know that it's a pain in the butt. you know, and it
You
takes some
really
time.
have to like it.
You really have to like it, and there's gonna be moments in which you're gonna question yourself, and then as we mentioned before, you're gonna start to compare with others, sometimes with friends as well, that you see them that they follow the usual path, and you see them now, you know, buying their own house and then things like that, and you're like what the hell? But it's part of the whole stuff here, and what I love about what you do is that you're showing everyone that is possible. Of course, it's a pain in the butt, but you're actually showing results here, and you're actually following what makes you happy. I mean, and that's badass, basically.
Thank you. And you brought up a really good point too. That is another kind of referencing back to your other question too. Watching other people around you, don't do that.
Yeah, don't
it's
don't.
they live their own lives, they have their own variables. You can't, right? Like you need to focus on where you're going and where you've come from and where you've been.
Absolutely. I mean, it's yeah, because you don't know what that person did in order to achieve or to be where they are right now, and it tends to be easy to criticize or to be in a position to be like, oh, why he did that, but once you put yourself in those shoes, you're like, oh, I get it now. So yeah, I
Mhm.
mean, it's a marathon at the end of the day. I would say that life, it's a marathon too. Just enjoy it, take it easy, don't go sprint full force because you're gonna have an injury and then you know what I mean. So yeah, but at the end of the day, keep doing what you do, Nikki. As I said, I love it, and keep spreading, keep making. I mean, keep showing people that besides that you're a total badass, that you are also making things happen, and that's incredible.
Oh, thank you so much, Dan. And thank you for having me on your show. I'm very excited to be here. And yeah, thank you so much.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, I also want to thank those who watched this. Thank you so much. If you're also listening to it, thank you as well. Since this episode is about to be over, in the description below, you're gonna find the link to Nikki's Instagram. So you're gonna follow her. Let's make her viral. Hashtag Team Nikki because she's incredible. She's amazing. And also, don't forget to also leave a like, subscribe, follow. It does help a lot. And again, Nikki, thank you so much. Keep inspiring, keep creating, keep being a super badass. And I'll see you in the next one.
Thank you. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to network. Really
Always
appreciate it.
perfect. All right.